This woman is a dynamic woman, and I know I say that about a lot of our guests, but Marla, I mean, I love her last name, okay? Living good. We want to be living good here in California and across the United States, but really seriously, in all seriousness, she is running for the United States House of Representatives. She's in California, and she's running in District 9. Uh, Thank you for coming on the show, Marla. We really can't wait to hear about your race and everything that you're doing. We're just so grateful you could come on the Erin Cruz show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's a great opportunity to connect.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, right now, California elections are pretty hot. I mean, people are really wanting to see strong leadership, level-headed and common sense policies put in place. But tell us, what is your background?
You know what? I grew up in agriculture. My family farms. And after college, I went and worked on Capitol Hill for Congressman Richard Pombo. I was his legislative director. And there I had a great opportunity to really learn about constituents and how to listen to what their concerns are. And it didn't end there. You had to act.
Right.
And that's really part of why I'm running, is because I just don't see that action. So once I left the Hill, I got married and moved back to the district. So I've been living in Lodi ever since. And my husband and I, you know, have been raising a family, and that's been my priority.
Right.
But
naturally.
Exactly. And so the kids have been my priority and our family, but I've worked in policy this whole time. So I've worked for the San Joaquin Regional Transit District. I've worked for Jordan and Associates, who does federal government relations. And now I'm at the California Strawberry Commission, where I do regulatory affairs. And so
Right.
that really is what got me down this path, because I really see what's not being done.
Right.
And you know, on a daily basis, I just feel like our district is falling further and further behind. And as a mom, I see that families need a break. I mean, it is hard out there. We are getting clobbered left and right with taxes and regulations, and we just can't continue like this. So that's, you know, a little bit of my background, but why I'm running too.
Right, right. And it's important to, you know, get a grasp of what you're really saying there is that, you know, you've been a part of the government process in trying to make things better. And you're just seeing that the job isn't really getting done, and you want to go that one step further. And that's something your children one day will see as such a treasure. It's so all-American of you. That's the way I view it.
Well, the one thing that I really like to tell people is that I love policy. I hate the politics of all of this, but I love policy. When you look at the policies that are being done right now, we just are being, I feel like our district has been ignored and left out. I understand how laws are made. I understand how regulations are made. And I understand how those things flow here into California at the state and local level. And that's what I love to do, and that's what I want to work on, and I just don't see it. I went and met with my current congressman, and this was really what made me decide to run, was I met with him, and we were talking about...
And what is that person's name?
Congressman McNerney. And he's a very nice man, but when it comes to policy, I just don't think the job's being done.
Right.
And met with him on a policy issue, and I walked out of there, and I thought, you know what? We deserve so much better. I've been involved in ag and policy my whole life. It was an ag issue I met on. And I got in the car and I was so upset that I called my husband right then and I decided to run. I called him, I said, this is ridiculous. We deserve better. And I would be honored to have our district's vote and to serve them, because this is something that I am 100% confident that I know how to do.
Right.
Again, I hate, but policy I absolutely love, and that's what I'm good at.
And let's repeat that, because I think there was a little skip in that. You were saying that
policy is what I love. I absolutely
I love to hear that. Policy is what I love. Politics can go out the window.
I love policy. I will read bills front to back. I will write new language, and I'll work on getting that inserted. I will comment to the EPA on issues. I will comment to the FDA. These are all things that I've done. The Department of Transportation. These are the things I absolutely love that I don't see being done here. And I think that federal policy, we're so far removed from it. Even though it impacts us in our everyday life, we don't understand the impacts of what's done in Washington, D.C. You know, gas taxes. we've all been really upset with these gas tax hikes here locally, and we see that our infrastructure is crumbling, but we also pay a federal gas tax.
Right.
And money that flows from the federal level down here locally. And I understand how every dollar flows. I understand how the metropolitan planning organizations work. I understand how our local agencies work, how Caltrans works in. And that's what we need, somebody that can go and lay that map out and put all the pieces together. I've been on our county's aviation advisory committee for the Stockton Airport since 2012. And it's been a fabulous opportunity to see the airport grow and to see us get cargo, which we didn't have before. And hopefully we're going to get some connecting service soon. But there's so many little things in our community that we just need somebody that can put those pieces together. And that's what I can do. And that's what I want to do for our district.
Right. And you know, for those people who maybe haven't heard of you or new to understanding who's running in District 9, what is your website so they can learn more about you and what work you've done and what policies you want to see happen?
It's Marla Livengood, LIVENGOOD.com. And then Facebook, it's Livengood for Congress.
Wonderful. Okay, so you're on social media too, so people can get the updates and what you're doing in the community. That's wonderful. Now, you know, there are a lot of hot topics, and we don't like to talk about the rhetoric. This whole show is about the candidates and learning about them, you know, you and what you want to do once elected to office. So we want to focus on that. The idea of immigration has created a lot of division. What actions would you like to have take place, assuming it's not resolved, immigration issues aren't resolved prior to taking office when you're elected, if you're elected?
Well, with regard to immigration, I really think we've had a flawed system for decades, and Congress has not done their job. First off, they haven't secured the border, and that's led to a high number of undocumented individuals here living and working, and they are making contributions to our communities. But we have to solve, the problem is two-pronged. We have to do something for the folks that are already here, because we're not deporting 11 million people. It's just not going to happen. But we need to secure our border. Any fix has to have both those solutions. We need to secure the border so that we prevent this from happening again. We did this in the 80s. We went and we gave everybody amnesty, but we didn't secure the border, and we're right back where we started. And so I think we need a solution for those that are here. We need some sort of a visa to authorize them to work and live and continue contributing to our society. But we also must, absolutely must, secure the border, and we have to know who is here. Right now, we know who's here, and we need to do that. We don't know who's working, who's not, and that is something that we absolutely have to do.
Right. So you're for funding the border wall.
I'm funding security along the border, whether it's a wall or drones or whatever those experts feel are the right thing to keep our border secure. That's what I'm in support of. And I also feel that we need to do something for the folks that are here.
That's wonderful. I mean, in terms of you seeing that this requires a comprehensive solution. I saw it as, I ran for United States Senate. I saw it as infrastructure, technology, and manpower. And it does have to be, the solution can't just be a wall. There's a big picture out there, and we're dealing with people. We're dealing with human trafficking, we're dealing with drugs, we're dealing with immigration issues, we're dealing with a whole slew of things. And we need strong policy in place, laws in place and enforce the laws to make life better for the people who are here. So now, you come from an agricultural community, and a lot of people are concerned about different kinds of visas relating to immigration, and you say that you're looking at possibly not giving citizenship, but visa worker programs for those people who are here. Does that seem like a viable solution for you and your community that you live in?
You know, I've been following and working on the ag solution very closely.
Well, I'm asking you because you're very close to it. And I think it's important for people to understand that there's a big picture. So,
and so we have in agriculture, we know that at least 50% of our workforce is undocumented. Some people say as high as 70%. And we know that a solution is absolutely needed. And right now, there's a bill in Congress that offered by Chairman Bob Goodlatte of the Judiciary Committee, and it would provide a solution for our current workers and then for future workers. So as people age out and as people have shortages in labor, in agriculture, they would be able to petition for additional workers legally in a workable program. Right now, there's the HDP program, but it's really not a workable program. So that's something that I think he has. They've debated different guest worker programs for agriculture for about 20 years. And these programs, they've all kind of had the same elements, but nobody has ever came to agreement. And I think it's really because both sides need to give and take a little bit. And so he has a bill that I think really is an excellent compromise. There are those, on the one side, the far way, and the other side, that some people say, unless you give blanket citizenship to everybody, we aren't going to pass it. Then there's the other.
Yeah, and I think that they're going from they're looking at, and I talked about this with one other candidate, they're talking about politics, they're not talking about the people involved, and we're talking about, can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I just wanted to make sure I heard absolute silence. I'm sure the listeners did as well. But, we're talking about people, corporations that feed us, ship food to us, meat, other things. We're talking about all different elements, right? But the politicians want to play politics rather than look at the big picture, find solutions, and serve the people. And so that's what I'm hearing you are wanting to do. You're wanting to take action and serve the people.
Absolutely. I want to make sure that we owe it to the people that are here. They are subject to deportation right now. All of the people working on our farms that are undocumented and are subject to deportation at any point.
Right.
They have a legal status and they aren't able to legally be here. And so we can continue debating different solutions and different policies, but the bottom line is without a work visa, they are subject to deportation. And I think that as part of agriculture and people that have been, my godfather was a Mexican immigrant. And a lot of people like to say that, you're not thinking of the people. I am thinking of the people that are here because this is what I was raised with. Mm-hmm. And I was raised on a ranch with workers and folks that immigrated here. And I believe that we need a solution and we owe it to them. And we need to owe it to them to stop bickering and fighting over petty little provisions and come together and get in a room and sit down and don't leave until a solution is done. Until something.
Solutions, I look at it this way. The people elect representatives and they expect them to get the job done. And these are paid individuals. These people aren't up there volunteering their time, and so they have a job to do and they're effectively not doing their job. And it's costing us a lot of time, money, and it's also putting us at risk because we don't know who's here. That's part of it. And so what I'm hearing is you want solutions and level-headed solutions. And again, people have your website and they can go learn more about the specifics and ask you any questions they might have because this might be a concern. Far right, far left.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm always open to talking policy. Right. I feel like when I worked on the Hill back in, I think I left in 2005. And at that time, there were lots of times where I worked for Congressman Pombo. He was a Republican. Congressman Cardoza was a Democrat in the next seat over. We sat down together, the staff in the offices, our bosses, and we worked on real solutions. And when I look at what's going on today in Congress, I do not see anybody sitting down together and doing solutions. I see finger pointing and blame. And that's why I'm running. We need to, I'm a mom, so I'm used to policing fights all day long. I have 3 kids. And I think Congress could use a mom or two back there and just telling them to stop the bickering, sit down in a room and come up with solutions.
Get down to business. Yeah.
Get down to business and nobody gets everything that they want, right? Everybody has to give a little bit. And I don't see that happening. And that's what I want to see. I want to see real solutions.
Real solutions for real people and serving the citizenry. Where do you stand on, I've always seen things very basic. Less tax, less regulation, less government.
Exactly.
And so on a very basic level, where do you stand in terms of jobs? Trump is doing a very good job, I believe. But where do you stand in terms of jobs and regulations that he's continually deregulating. You're a policy person. Do you see him as doing a good job in the current Congress, or what would be your plan to help encourage job growth?
I think he's doing an excellent job. We've seen our unemployment numbers drop. We are seeing him tackle tough regulations. And I feel like let's let people do what they're good at. Mm-hmm. And today we spend more time doing paperwork. And I've talked to more people that have to hire a person just to comply with one regulatory program. Not even all the programs, just right. One. I talked to a grower the other day that has one person who just does all of the reporting for water usage and discharge. This is ridiculous.
Right.
We need to do what we're good at, be productive, and not tie people down with regulations and complications that are completely unnecessary. If it's something that's going to make us safer or help us do things better, okay. But for the most part, we have bureaucrats that are over there, adding on little regulations here and there, and it needs to end. We need to go back to the basics. We need to take a look at common sense and just really simplify things. Let's make things simple for people and let them do what they're good at.
Well, part of it is this, and you mentioned if it makes things safer or better, but the reality, okay, is government, it will bloat itself. Corporations will refine, and they will work to make things, more profitable, safer. Now, some people say, well, big bad corporations, no, they're going to cut corners to make more profit margin, yada, yada, yada. But I believe that if government incentivized some areas for safety or improving technology rather than penalize, we might have a more friendly corporate environment and end up in a positive note, so to speak.
Well, my husband's a general contractor, and so he builds things, and
yes.
We have so many regulations in California.
Mm-hmm. We don't just have OSHA, we have Cal OSHA.
Everything in duplicate. And right. So we moved here. I met my husband while I was in DC, and I talked him into moving to sunny California. And when he got here,
it's the best state.
I know, best state ever, but he couldn't believe the regulations and the poor quality of building materials we have due to the high cost of regulation, because you have to cut costs somewhere. Right. And what he's been telling me he's been seeing in building is he's been seeing materials that are not the quality that he had out in Virginia, because you have to cut costs somewhere. So even when he goes to his lumber supplier or wherever he gets his materials from, they're not the quality that we have in other states. Now, California, I feel like, is really the epicenter of all these crazy regulations.
They are.
And it spreads. People do things here, and we talk about being innovators. But when we're tying people's hands with red tape, we're not innovating. We have some of the highest housing costs in the nation. We were the foreclosure capital. And all of these things, we can't just keep regulating people. We need to give people a break and let them do what they do best, and let them keep their money that they earn and stop taxing them. We need to give them choices with healthcare and not these mandates of...
That was going to be my next question, is where do you stand on repeal and replace of Obamacare? Or repeal of Obamacare. It doesn't have to be replaced. I'm just...
Well, I think it needs to be repealed. I've said that too on some questionnaires. It doesn't necessarily need to be replaced, because I look at my bills. So I have 3 children, and I had them all at the same hospital. And the bill, I had different insurance. And so what they charged for these 3 children was when I had my son, the insurance, it was a self-insured plan that my husband and I purchased ourselves. My bill was over $100,000 just for me, and then $100,000 for him. I felt like they were pulling stuff out of thin air, coming up with these costs. Now, luckily, I had an $8,000 cap. But that is pretty shocking to think of.
And how long were you inside of the hospital?
All of my deliveries were like an hour, and then I will say my son was a preemie, so he was there. If his $100,000, I will give him that it was worth that. But for my girls, I had the same quick delivery with them, and I think I paid $200 because I had a better insurance plan. And so it was, but that's what when you look at the statement of benefits of what was charged to the insurance company, it's because they negotiate better deals.
But what I find interesting is that people have been having birthing children for ever, and here they're providing you a bed and a facility and a safe space, and it costs that amount of money.
It does.
It's
and
insane.
Now, it's just these negotiated costs that they come up with. I feel like that's what was missed in the Affordable Care Act, is that now they've just clamped down and provided more things that they have to cover. You know, on the line of children, I am done having children. So, but do I need to pay for, you know, maternity care now? I do because of the law, right? But I don't, there's things that I don't want to pay for.
Or you maybe don't need to pay for. I actually, in fact, interviewed with somebody, and we decided to, it was one of the few clips we did take out, but, you know, some people are men and they don't need certain kinds of coverages. And you know, and here they are forced to pay for these coverages. And so, yes, it's out of control. Now, what in terms of replacing Obamacare, because the potential could be that we do end up repealing it, and if the negotiation is that we're going to end up replacing it, where do you stand on some of the big issues?
You know, I feel that we already have a safety net in this country. Nobody's going to get turned away from an emergency room. We have safety nets that are already in place. And I feel like every time we come up with these solutions and you hear Congress debating, they're debating bloated solutions, right? They're not coming up with a safety net for those that are in need. They're coming up with a solution for everybody. And they're becoming a nanny government where you need to look for the government to provide for you.
Right.
When I look at what's happened with the VA system, I have no confidence that the government is going to be able to provide a single payer system.
They can't. They won't. Well, they would, but it would cost a lot of money. You're not going to get good care, and your potential of dying in the process of waiting for that care.
Exactly. And I think, what do I want for my children? Would I take them there? No. I want my own choices, and I want to be responsible for my own choices and not rely on somebody else. And I feel like people always turn to the government, and the government's not the answer. Right. The government needs to let us do what we want to do and dial it back a little bit.
Dial it back a lot of it. Dial it back a lot of it. Yes, absolutely. So. You know, and I'm glad to hear you say that about repealing or replacing, or just a straight repeal. Where, in terms of policy, do you stand on purchasing across state lines, tort reform, some of these other ideas? You know, everybody wants to throw it all in one bucket. All or nothing thinking. You know, we can't repeal and replace unless we have something in place. Or if we can't do the, you know, Congress has to get back to the place of serving the people. And, you know, they may have to piecemeal this out, work on separate bills to be able to get the job done. But where do you stand on some of these things like the tort reform?
I definitely think we need tort reform. I think that that's part of the reason that our costs are so bloated, right? Because everybody, you know, you hear all these, when people are advertising on TV for call me if you've had this. I mean, that means that we have a problem, right? They're not out there trying to help somebody who legitimately has been wronged. These are people that are bounty hunter lawyers looking for clients to go sue somebody, and the end result is that all of us pay the price, right? We pay the price of these ridiculous insurance premiums and the high cost.
The high cost of healthcare overall, right? It drives all costs up.
All costs up.
So how about purchasing across state lines and free market reforms?
Absolutely. I think we should absolutely be able to do that. I believe in the free market, and I believe that we need to let the free market prevail. And right now we have all these restrictions in place that just prevent free market. They prevent choice. They, you know, dictate to us what we need to do. And instead we should be dictating to them as consumers what we want them to provide.
So a consumer-driven market.
Consumer-driven market. And I think when you look at most things, if we would let the consumers drive things, you know, with their changing tastes, changing attitudes, and changing availabilities across the board, whether it's healthcare or, you know, whatever business model, whatever you're dealing with, that choice is going to drive the day, instead of having Congress battle it out, come up with a solution, and lock you in it for the next 50 years.
And that's going to bring me back to my last question or conversational question with you is
Mhm.
what we see with immigration, what we see with tax reform, what we see with healthcare reform. It's always kick the can or revise and put something in place, and then we don't hear about it, and they argue about it for 20 years. I see tax reform that Trump just did as a first step. We need to, hammer this down. Any point where a congressperson can ease the tax burden, make our lives better as citizens, that's their duty. And right. And so where do you stand in terms of, constantly putting pressure on these politicos up there to continually better the policy for us? Because, and I say for us because I may not live in your district, but what decisions you make will impact my life.
So this is things I see is we wait till we're at a crisis point.
Right. It has to stop.
Congress does not act. I mean, look at the appropriations. The new fiscal year starts October 1. Mm-hmm. We still need to finish our appropriations for the next fiscal year. We wait till we are at a crisis point constantly. And when you do that, things end up not working out so well, right? Because you're rushing to get the job done and you're always under the gun and it's always a crisis. I think first off, we need to get rid of politics. We need to get rid of this, people making these bold statements and doing all these things for the shock factor. We need to get people getting in a room and working solutions out. I also am tired of the rhetoric with talking points and the competing news media outlets. What I've been trying to do is if I talk about an issue, I like to have the facts and backup. When, if I post something that Trump has done, I will post the link of what he actually signed or what has actually happened. And I feel like even if people aren't a lawyer and they can't read legislative language, I think you should always be sharing those links and sharing the details because it's not as complicated as people think. And I think the more we get comfortable reading what really happened and the real facts and what the language really says, I think that we as constituents are going to be able to better hold our elected officials' feet to the fire, right? Because we're going to empower them to understand what's really going on. And I feel like right now people are so so-and-so said this. You can read it too, and you can see what's really going on. And I don't see that happening. And so I've been trying to share with people, and through the Junior League State Public Affairs Committee, they have this amazing program where they educate women. And they have a 2-year-long commitment, and they go through and they walk you through the legislative process at the state level. And it is amazing. And I'd love to see more of that and really empower people and teach them what is it, what is the process? How can you impact it yourself? And how can you have a voice? And what's really going on?
And then that way you can better interact with your elected officials. Part of the problem is many people feel that they are not educated enough on an issue or on a subject or on a person. And so they say, oh, well, I'm not going to vote. Well, you know what? Most of the information is out there online right now. You can find something you can find a lot about Marla Livengood on the internet if you want to take a look. And as a matter of fact, you are in a really tight race, Marla. I was looking at the numbers. You're only a couple of points behind the incumbent and have a very good chance of winning.
Thank you.
The general election. So
I going to be very close, and I'm going to be on the 50% plus one side.
Yes. So please just, if you could recap, say your name, a little bit about your platform, and provide your website so everybody can get in touch with you about time, talent, and treasure, how they can get involved.
Okay. Marla Livengood, and I am running for California's 9th Congressional District. My website is marlalivengood.com, and my main issues are fighting for working families. I realize we need a break. We need a Congress who listens to us and a Congress that knows that they're working for us, not the other way around.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for being on the show, Marla, and hopefully we'll be having you back, and perhaps you'll even be an elected representative. That would be wonderful.
That's the plan. Thank you so much.
Right. God bless.
To hear more and to learn more on how you can make an impact or about the Erin Cruz Show, visit us online at erincruz.com. That's ERINCRUZ.com.